discuss more trade deals. More than a dozen CEOs are joining him on the trip, including Elon Musk, Tim Cook, and executives from Boeing, Meta, and GE Aerospace. Worth noting, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang was not on the list. It's unclear why. Meanwhile, tensions over Taiwan are simmering. Taiwan's President赖清德thanked the U.S. Tuesday for helping strengthen its military against China as Trump left for his China trip. Lai said Taiwan would not yield to pressure.
The people of Taiwan know very well that democracy is earned, not given. The people of Taiwan have never backed down in the face of mounting external challenges, and they will never bow to pressure. Taiwan is a sovereign, independent nation.
Taiwan remains one of the biggest flashpoints in U.S.-China relations. President Trump says he will bring up U.S. arms sales to Taiwan with China.
Well, I'm going to have that discussion with President Xi. President Xi would like us not to, and I'll have that discussion. That's one of the many things I'll be talking about.
The U.S. is Taiwan's most important international backer, even though the two do not have formal diplomatic ties. It's also Taiwan's main arms supplier, something that continues to anger China, which has repeatedly called for an end to U.S. weapons sales. In addition,
and thus how could it be a legitimate regime? To say these are some of the things, some of the tools that you use in what is called political warfare.
Coming up, Taiwan, artificial intelligence, and the price of engagement.
What I'm watching for is really out of sheer curiosity to see how really dumb, very well-educated people can be to keep going into the China market. And what does it take in terms of empirical evidence to tell you that is a rigged casino? And you will always lose. It's the Chinese Communist Party's avowed objective is to put forward companies out of business, replace them with Chinese companies.
Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Taiwan, the AI race, and the price of engagement. We welcome back retired Brigadier General David Stillwell and retired Marine Colonel Grant Newsham to delve into the big geopolitical issues shaping the world and what a win would look like for President Trump out of his China visit. And a big topic that is expected to come up is Taiwan. Some headlines are fearing that perhaps if, the U.S. side asks for help with Iran, that could lessen, if you want, support for Taiwan. Now, U.S. officials have said that nothing has changed when it comes to Taiwan. David, what are you watching out for on that front when it comes to Taiwan, and if anything changes?
Look, to piggyback on Grant's point about political warfare, we're both former military, and the first thing that comes to mind on Taiwan is a outright kinetic attack and all that stuff. And I tell people I would waste a bit of time on that. When you've got the KMT chief, Chung going to Beijing, talking about the 92 consensus, and then the KMT decrementing the defense budget by, $15 billion? What message do the Americans take from that? Legitimately, it's like Europe. If you're not willing to pony up, resources for your own defense, why in the world do you expect us to care more about your defense than us? Why should Germany expect us to ride to the rescue to keep them from having to learn Russian? I've never understood why we coddle NATO the way we do. I think the president's going to make the same, probably short-term calculation on Taiwan. If they are going to continue through the KMT's control of the legislative yuan to reduce their funding for their own defense, it's going to be a hard sell to the American people to ride to their rescue when they don't care. So whatever President Lai has to do, whatever the Taiwan voters have to do to ensure that they demonstrate that their own interest in their own defense matters greatly, and then look at what Prime Minister Takaichi in Japan has been doing. I can't say enough about what Japan has done to right this ship. But if they can put any pressure on Taiwan to convince all of us that they're going to fight for their own freedoms instead of waiting for us to do it, that's going to be hugely important.
And Grant, when it comes to the Trump administration's track record here, Alex Gray, he's the chief of staff of the National Security Council under the first Trump administration, pointed out that this administration has been very strong on Taiwan for too many years, or too many people in Washington were always kind of saying, oh, Taiwan isn't our issue, we should essentially let it fold. But he was highlighting how Taiwan is a key American interest. Why is Taiwan such a key American interest?
Well, if Taiwan comes under Chinese control, there's a few things that happen. One is that the so-called first island chain, this chain of islands from Japan down to Taiwan, through the Philippines, down to Malaysia, we broke in the middle of it. China has then got free access to the Pacific. Swing up to the north, you isolate Japan. Swing to the south, you isolate Australia. And that's operational. But there's a political psychological aspect to this as well. If Taiwan, 23 million free people are enslaved by the Chinese, well, it shows that the U.S. military couldn't prevent it. It shows U.S. economic and financial power couldn't do it, and U.S. nuclear weapons couldn't do it. And you have that happen, and you're going to find that every country in Asia is going to have some real doubts about the United States and try to cut the best deal that they can with the PRC. So Asia would turn at least dark pink overnight. And every country anywhere that thinks it has an agreement, sort of explicit or implicit, with the United States that America will keep them free, well, they're going to have their doubts about it as well. So America would probably be finished as an Asian power, and it would also put in doubt our actual global predominance if this were to happen. So it is unusual that a small island of 23 million people has this kind of an outsized effect. But as I note, there is a psychological, political aspect to Taiwan that tends to get overlooked. But as General Stillwell said, the Taiwanese have to do their part as well. And Chinese political warfare and subversion over the decades has been very effective against Taiwan, and we're seeing that on display now. Most Taiwanese do not want to be part of China, but as I said, the Taiwanese have to do their part as well. And if they expect Americans, particularly in flyover country, the Youngstown, Ohio, the Wichita, Kansas, you expect them to support sending their children off to defend Taiwan. And the same thing applies to the Europeans as well. So that's the reason why Taiwan matters. People like me who live and breathe it tend to understand this. But the average person, this is not part of their daily life, and it needs to be clearly articulated by U.S. administrations.
Right now, on top of that, the headlines mostly are noting the economic aspect with high-end chips. TSMC especially is in the headlines a lot. David, when it comes to the other topics that could be covered in the summit, some headlines are suggesting AI is a big one. China's really trying to ramp up their own self-reliance, is what they're calling it. So they're not reliant on, for instance, the United States letting them get those high-end chips. Perhaps deals in terms of the farmland, soybeans, corn on the U.S. side is another aspect that's come up in some headlines. What are you watching out for, though, in terms of what could come out of these talks?
On the business side, I guess I'm very depressed with language that says if we don't give them our best, highest end tech, AI, chips, whatever, that will force them to develop them on their own. That is ignorant. They're doing everything they can to develop their own. And if you listen to Xi Jinping, he talks about being a world-leading elio country in all aspects, in virology, which is what got us the pandemic, by the way, and then in tech. So to argue that if we don't give them our best stuff through NVIDIA, who wants to make a profit? I get it. That it'll incentivize them to actually put effort into that. I think that's pretty ignorant. They're doing it anyway.
And
阿波罗网网赌弱报道，北京川协会刚落幕，习近平又借台湾议题对国际社会大搞恐吓施压，企图制造台湾会被交易的舆论压力。但中华民国总统赖清德随即强硬发声，直接撕碎中共长期包装的红统谎言。赖总统明确重申，所谓台独是指台湾不属于中华人民共和国的一部分，是中华民国与中华人民共和国互不隶属。一句话， 直接打穿中共几十年的政治洗脑。赖总统强调，中华民国台湾本来就是主权独立国家，台湾从来不是中华人民共和国的一部分，更不存在所谓台独问题。真正不断改变现状、破坏和平的，恰恰是持续军演、军机扰台、灰色威胁不断升级的中共。赖总统正本清源指出，台湾从未被中共统治过，哪怕一天。赖总统拒绝恐吓，表示台湾不会挑衅，但也绝不会在压力下放弃主权与民主自由。赖总统戳破统战骗局，中共嘴巴喊统一，本质却是并吞与集权扩张。赖总统对川习会后最关键定调，台海和平稳定绝不会被牺牲，更不会被交易。赖